Hi everybody, welcome to Great Horse of Steel. My name's Ian Ellis. I'm just going to go through the mixing blues. Blues is one of my favourites. It's one that I did when I was at art school. I can remember discovering that you could actually mix a blue, like you can mix a yellow, and you can mix a red, the three primary colours. What you're doing though, you're mixing, or quite often you're mixing shades of the blue. So it's like when I mix the yellow, you're mixing the shades of the yellow, and it goes kind of greenish hue when you mix that. So it kind of yellow is a bit problematic because everyone looks at it and sees it going green when you darken it, but that's its colour when it's darkened. With blue, it's much more straightforward. You've got kind of, it still looks blue when you mix it, and you get some really beautiful blues. I'm going to start off by just looking at how you can just slightly alter a blue to get it to a different blue. So for instance, if you want to get a green blue, ultramarine blue, you can put colours next to it. So if I go for the brightest, I want to get the cobalt blue, I can mix the cerulean blue with the ultramarine, I get myself a cobalt blue. I want to get a cerulean blue and a cobalt, I can use the ultramarine blue with the viridian. That's giving me the green blue, a bit more of the ultramarine blue. Go over towards the cobalt blue again, still dominant by the green there. Just get more of the blue. Some cobalt blues are a bit greenish, so the darker cobalt blue tends to be quite greenish hue. That's quite a lighter one, so it's slightly quite pure. I see the cobalt blue as quite pure blue. The other side of it, you've got the greenish blues. Most of the blues like Prussian blue, Talo blue, cyan, all in those green areas here. And ultramarine blue is the only blue we've got, actually one side of it, and it's a beautiful colour. So I'm just showing how can you mix a darker shade of ultramarine blue. I can use the purple. I've got these colours here. I've got on the side of it. That's dioxazine purple. I've got cobalt violet here. This is alizarin crimson, rose madder. Now alizarin crimson, I think, is a kind of shade. It's actually, if anything, I think it should be a little bit warmer going between these two, and it's a shade. I don't think it's a pure colour. It's a bit like sap green. It's a really rich green, but it's kind of very rich colour. It's got a rich colour towards it. Cadmium red, and this is cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow, emerald green, viridian green. And I'm going to go the other side now. I've gone down the green side to mix these green blues. Now if I want to get the ultramarine blue, again, if I want a shade of ultramarine blue, don't use ultramarine blue. What you're doing, you're using the colours on the side of it. So if I go for cobalt blue, I can use the purple, the blue purple like that to get the, again, it's too strong. Just bringing in a bit more blue. It's actually not as dark as the ultramarine blue, but you're getting not such a powerful pigment. So if I put that's the ultramarine blue down there, if I actually put a bit of ultramarine blue next to it, you can see the intensity of the two, and that's kind of like a shade darker. So it's darker, so I'm getting a subtle colour. It's a bit like, same thing if you put black with the blue, you'll get this kind of colour. Now, go further away. I can start getting away from blue itself. If I want to get a darker blue, I could go for a purple and a green. So if I go for viridian green, which has got blue in it, and the dioxazine violet, I should get some really lovely shades of blue, and I can just get, it's very dark, it's hard to see. I'll just put some white with it. Well, I can just rub it in. I'll just show you the kind of colour it is when you rub it in. It gives you a nice shade of the blue within that. Quite nice to get a little glaze of colour like that rather than using white, but put some white with it. It doesn't really harm blue, actually. If you put white with blue, perhaps one of the reasons why old masters would use it last, to put the oranges and browns and things to glaze, because they don't look too good when white's added to it. But when you put white with the blue, it still keeps its transparency. It's a very beautiful colour. put white with orange, you can look a bit disgusting, a bit spewy colour, but it's lovely. That's a colour moving. Now I can actually, I've got myself almost like an ultramarine blue there. I can actually use a bit more green, and this is the beauty of the shift. Well, I was showing in the recently the Monet painting where the movement goes from the violet to the green, and I can actually bring a bit more green into that. Too much, gone too far away. I can get these colours much closer to each other, and more white with that. And again, that lovely shift with blues, and that's just using viridian green and the violet. If we go for more red violet, the red violet should make it a little bit more less intense. Sorry. If I go for a bit more white with it as well, so I've got the viridian green and the cobalt violet. Lovely combination, and you can see it starts to move I use a bit of white so you can see what's happening to the mix, because it goes very dark. If you use some white, you can see the colour I'm getting there, and that's viridian green and cobalt violet, and give you a lovely beautiful blue. It's going over towards the cobalt blue, I think, going to green blue. If I can bring it back over to ultramarine blue using the cobalt violet, a bit more cobalt violet within that. It's looking more like an ultramarine blue. Put the violet over this side to keep in touch with this idea, and then it going over towards the viridian green a bit more again using more white so you can see the colours. And you can see these are lovely combinations of colours, and you see there's lack of intensity of those two. The two colours are slightly further away, but really lovely. If you want some subtle blues like that, you've got them. Rose madder is a lovely colour as well. I think rose madder, it's got a lot of very powerful colour. They're very cheap. Don't go buy yourself a really expensive rose madder. They can get them quite cheap. All my paints I've got for less than a £5. They're student quality. But they're fine, the pigments are fine, just that they've been diluted a little bit, so the quality of the pigment is there, but the quality of the depth of the colour, if you want to put in pastel paint, it's not too good. But the colours are great, and that's a beautiful colour. That's the rose madder. Again, use the viridian green with that again. Mix these two. White with it again, see, and again you can see it's going much of a grey, but a really beautiful grey, blue, purple. Keep adding more green with it and more white so we can see the colours. And it's going towards, you can see it's heading towards more of a greyer version of the blues. Really lovely colours. Alizarin crimson, that takes me back to my first party trick, I suppose. When I was at art school, I said to my fellow students I could mix a blue with viridian green and a red, the red being the alizarin, which will give me a lovely grey blue, but not so, when you see it against all these colours, it looks a bit too grey now, but when I painted it on its own, you're getting these lovely blues. Get back to viridian, a bit more viridian with it. And more white. And it's going on this really lovely grey blue. It's almost complementary. It's a very subtle colour coming down there. You get a little bit more of the, sorry, not that one, the alizarin again with it. And that's proof that what I'm saying about this colour being slightly more warm than that colour, because you can see the actual colour I'm getting is much greyer than this. And put more white with it. Bit more viridian green. I'm putting that next to that. Yeah, it's lovely. Grey blues, grey green blues like that, very lovely. And finally, I'll just go for one more blue, where we're looking at the complementary. It's going further away. You've got the orange, cadmium orange there, and you've got the ultramarine blue. You want to make a really neutral grey blue. These are the two complementaries. Going really furthest apart. It's not another colour now. I'm getting a really dark ultramarine blue there. This is lovely. Some complementary colour there. And just a little bit more orange with it. Just neutralise it a bit more. Still in the ultramarine area. And you can just put a bit more orange, make it more neutral. It's not far off that, is it? It's kind of, you see the bluish colour, and I've got this grey colour there. I can lighten it more, get a neutral grey, and I can just add slightly more ultramarine blue to that, just to move it over. So it's got more blue. So I'm actually a very similar way of getting the colour I had before with the alizarin crimson. I'm getting a very similar colour there, but it's more blue. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that, everybody. That's just the mixing blues. How you can control them without actually using a third colour, but you need quite a big palette. And I've more or less used every colour there. The only one I've not used at the moment is emerald green. I used a bit of yellow in with the ultramarine blue. You can shift it over if you want. Slightly bit of yellow coming into the ultramarine blue will give you the green blue. So even yellow, you can use a yellow to mix a blue. And you can slightly going across all the green blues there. Anyway, thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all again. Bye.